Hi, everyone. Welcome to a fresh live app teardown session with me, Ariel Michaeli. I'm the CEO and co-founder of App Figures, and I'm also a resident ASO expert here at App Figures. I look at a lot of data all the time, whether it's ASO or app performance, really anything that has to do with apps. I love that. And I blog about it. I write a newsletter once a week where I share news about apps that are interesting, and I also do a teardown of popular apps once a week every Tuesday. I did one yesterday on Pluto TV. I hope you saw it. If you are not on the newsletter, you can sign up. I think we'll share the link at some point. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at how I do teardowns and also how I learn really quickly for apps that I don't know and how I get more and better ideas for keywords using competitor intelligence. That's something not enough people do, and I get a lot of questions about that all the time. So it's part theory, part hands-on, a lot more hands-on, and it's also part art and part science. And I'm going to go through all of those using my process with the tools so you can see how to do it and hopefully be able to do it with your apps and get better results faster. Let's jump right into it. So what's an app teardown? I've been saying app teardowns and I say that all the time, and it's the way I do analyses of apps. So I analyze an app, I tear down. I look at pretty much everything. I look at what competitors are doing. I look at what it looks like on the App Store. And I try to understand what users are looking for, because ultimately that's what App Store optimization is all about, getting discovery. And so an app teardown, the way I look at it, is this complete analysis. Today, I'm going to look specifically at how to learn a little bit more quickly so we don't have to make mistakes. And the reason we want to do that is because ASO is part art, part science. I say this all the time to everyone who asks. You can get the best tools out there, and we have them. But they're not going to give you exactly what you need to do because every app is just a little bit different. The algorithm has a lot of nuances. The algorithm is what decides where to rank you and whether to rank you at all, you and your app. And so there are all these unknowns that data is just not necessarily going to clarify, but our human brains are actually really good at doing this. So if you look at enough data, you will be able to determine what's good and what's not, what could be better and what isn't. And so it's a combination. It's a combination of looking at enough apps and enough searches, and also using tools to understand things like popularity score and download estimates to get an idea of what's going on beyond what you can actually see. And so the idea behind art and science is that it's iterative. And also something I say often enough, you try things, you see what works, you continue with what worked best, you throw away what didn't. But that also means a lot of trial and error. Now, I'm a big believer in trying, failing, succeeding, and doing what you need to do to learn more. But sometimes you just don't have the time, or you don't need to do that because a lot of others have failed and succeeded, and you can learn from them. And so I like to learn from competitors. Competitors, in most cases, have tried something. Even if they haven't tried actively, they have done something because that's the nature of how people think. They might have tried different keywords than you. They might have tried different ideas than you. And you can learn from all of them if you look in the right places. So I'm going to walk you through my process for how I do that. The theory behind it is simple. One, we need to figure out who we're actually competing with. Now, many of you think that whoever has similar features is who you're competing with. And for the most part, that's true maybe in the eyes of users. But when it comes to the App Store and on Google Play, as you'll see very soon, it's really who's ranking well. So if there's a keyword that you want to be ranking in, and someone else who may not even have the right feature set is in that keyword ranking better than you, users are going to look at them first. Whether they have the same set of features or not, whether they're better or not, whether they're cheaper or not, it doesn't even matter. What matters is they occupy a spot above you. They're your competitors when it comes to App Store optimization. And so first, we need to find those. Then we need to figure out how well they're doing and how well they're doing over time. Apple looks at about 7 to 30 days. Google looks at a much wider period. So it's always good to know the trends. Are they going up? Are they going down? Anything that you can tell about their downloads and ratings and ranks is going to help you figure out what's it going to take to actually compete with them when it comes to those keywords. And then we're going to analyze the keywords they use. We're going to look for keywords where they're doing better than us. We're going to look for keywords where we're doing better than them. And at the end of the day, we're going to take the ones that make the most sense. for our app, the ones we can compete in, meaning we have similar performance and are also very beneficial. The tools I'm going to be using today are my 3 favorite tools in our entire platform. Keyword Inspector, probably by far my favorite tool, where we can see results and we can see a summary of kind of everything that matters around App Store optimization from the algorithm standpoint. And then we're going to dive into competitor intelligence so we can look at their download estimates, which is going to be the most applicable metric here. And that's how we're going to establish a benchmark and a trend. And then we're going to look at competitor keywords so we can do the analysis of keyword gaps and opportunities and get ideas and summarize them, bring them back into Keyword Inspector and continue this loop. So this is the theory part of this side of today's session. And now we're going to jump into the actual hands-on part of this session. So I'm going to get out of here. And we're going to jump into 2 apps that I selected out of the many that were submitted. We had so many submissions, and I would love to get to each and every one of them, but it's just impossible in the amount of time we have. Every time we do this, and we've done this 3 times, twice, I think that I can do more than I can, and that doesn't always work. So I'm going to try and focus on 2 apps specifically. These came from your suggestions, and I'm going to look at the competitive intelligence for both the App Store for them and also what they look like on Google Play. So you can see how this can be done across both stores. Even though the stores are a little bit different, the concepts are pretty much the same. So while the keywords might be a little bit different, the ideas behind how to find them are going to be the same. I chose Headspace and also Simply Piano by JoyTunes. And we're going to look at both of them, like I said, on the App Store and on Google Play. And as I said before we started, if you have any questions at any time on the tools, the process, or anything else, just throw it into the Q&A and I will try to get to it live on air. If not, I can get to it later. And just like that, we're going to get started. So Headspace is a very interesting app. I have covered it before in the newsletter, and I looked at its trends. And because of COVID and lockdowns, you can imagine it has become a little bit more interesting and has gotten a little bit more engagement over the last few months. Now, when it comes to the App Store, meditation is a pretty competitive term. And so you have to be really clever in what sort of keywords you use. And what I always look at is how the keywords combine. And so I see a lot of keywords here: headspace, meditation, sleep, stress, relaxing sounds. That is great. And we're going to see how that actually impacts it versus its competitors. So step number 1, let's open Keyword Inspector and let's check one of those keywords. Let's go for meditation. Now, I'm doing all of this in real time, and so hopefully everything is just going to work and fast, and it does. Great. But if it doesn't, that's probably why. So Keyword Inspector shows us the current search results. If you go to the App Store in the US on an iPhone, these are the results you're going to see sorted the way these results are. So Headspace is already number 1, which is great. It doesn't mean that it can't do better, but it's already a good start. Now, beyond seeing those, because that you can see by opening your iPhone, we can see the things that matter to the algorithm. So the things that matter to the algorithm are the trend of downloads, and this is based on our estimates specifically for the US, and I believe this is the last 30 days. Let's see. Oops. Too fast. This is the last 30 days. That's what happens when I do stuff in real time. So this is last 30 days based on our estimates, and we can have an idea now of how well these apps are performing. We can also see if these apps are spending on paid user acquisition. We can see their ranks in their category, the number of ratings that they have, and also when they were updated and when they were released. For some reason, we don't have an update date for Headspace, which I will look into later. But the idea behind this is kind of an X-ray of search results and the most important things that you should look at. So we surface all of them so you can see it at a glance. Now, I see a few questions. Connie is asking 3 keyword tools were Keyword Inspector, competitor keywords, and competitor intelligence. Connie. And those I will show you very soon. And then Marcus is asking, should I invest in paid user acquisition? Yes and no and maybe. Paid user acquisition is a slightly deeper sort of term, but I can try to touch on it in just a little bit once we look at keywords, and we can see how we can push a specific keyword where we may not be ranking very well but have potential. So I would go with a yes and a no, depends on what you're trying to do. So back to this. So Headspace is competing with Calm, obviously, but also Insight Timer, and also Meditation Nest, and also Better Me Meditation and Sleep. Now, these are not necessarily apps that I would know as someone who is new to meditation or someone who doesn't look at this space too often. So as a user, if I'm looking for a meditation app, these are the competitors that I'm looking at. It's possible there are many other apps out there that do things related to meditation, and obviously there are. It's actually possible there are apps that have more downloads than some of these. This app has 62,000 downloads, 41,000 downloads in the last 30 days, and this app has 80,000, and yet it ranks better than it. So it's really less about what the apps are performing individually. It's more about what the keyword is showing us. And so I'm going to look at the top 5 the top 5 apps in this particular keyword, and those are the ones that I'm going to analyze. Now we have this link that takes us from Keyword Inspector into Competitor Intelligence very quickly, and the idea is that now I can establish a benchmark. So the results now look a little bit different than what they did before. Even though Headspace is number 1 for that one particular keyword, it's number 2 in overall downloads, and it's not even that close. Now, we're focused on the US in this particular case because we're doing optimization for the US. If we were to do it for any other country, I would pick a different country so we can make sure that we're doing it correctly. The algorithm mostly focuses on that country. And so now we have an idea of what we need to hit in order to compete with Calm. If we are in this space, we probably shouldn't go after keywords where Calm is number 1. And if we do, we should expect to not be able to dethrone Calm or even Headspace in this case. And so this will come in handy when we start looking at keywords, even though a keyword might have a high popularity. And I know many of you are looking for high popularity and a low competitiveness score, which is pretty much the right formula. Just because the popularity is high doesn't mean that your app can actually make it. So it's a good first step to use that keyword and to target it, but it's not necessarily the best step because you may not make it into the top 5. And you know how it is on the iPhone. If you're not in that top, users are unlikely to scroll, especially now with the iPhone having all these curated lists and everything else. And so really it's about knowing these trends. So beyond just looking at these trends, or beyond just looking at the sums of downloads, let's look at what the trends look like, and I'm going to expand this to a year just so we can have an idea of if an app is growing, if an app is not growing. If an app is growing, it's going to be tougher to compete with it. If an app is not growing, it's going to be easier, and that's an opportunity because it means that you can actually potentially take on its keywords. So purple is Calm, and Calm is doing okay. It's pretty stable, but at the same time you can see that there's kind of a decline. So if you want to compete with it, now is a good time to do that. Let's look at this one. What is this one? Green is Headspace, and it's actually pretty consistent. We can see that COVID made it a little bit higher, but at the same time, downloads have rebounded and now they're stable. So competing with Headspace is going to be a little bit more complicated or require a little bit more. So let's jump into a quick question that I see here. You mentioned earlier that in App Store we should not repeat the same keywords in the title and subtitle. How about Google Play Store? Same answer. You should not repeat the keyword between the name and the short description. You should use it and reuse it in the long description. So that's kind of unrelated, but that's also a good question. So now we have an idea of what's going on. Calm is slightly less stable than Headspace. Headspace is pretty strong. We have an idea of the kind of downloads and performance that we need in this country. Let's jump into keywords. So this is the fun part. What the ASO component of our competitor intelligence report will do is it now looks for all the keywords where we saw Headspace, Calm, and any of those competitors ranked in any rank and mashes them all together, puts them side by side. So we can quickly see who's ranking where, establish a benchmark for how well we're doing if we're Headspace in this particular case, and also get ideas for which keywords we can go after where our competitors may not do or may not be doing a good job or are doing a great job, and we have to chase them. So I'm gonna look at Headspace specifically, and Headspace is just doing well. It's very nice to see an app that is ranked #1 in so many keywords, and not just the fives. Fives are too low, are the kind of don't touch, try to avoid at any cost keywords. And I know some of you are targeting fives because they're so easy to rank in. Don't. Just skip them all together. No one is looking for them. The increase of impressions that you're going to get from fives is going to be maybe visible, but it's not going to give you any downloads in the grand scheme of things, unless you're going after 4 downloads, at which point I would say aim higher, because that's probably better. So I can quickly see now the keywords that Headspace is in, Calm is in. Let's sort by Calm and see what they're doing. And boy, I see quite a few opportunities here. And we can do the same thing for any app. But before we even do that, I'm going to jump into the competitor keywords report, because that was just a summary. And now let's have some fun. So the first thing that I always do, and I kind of bashed fives on popularity, so I'm going to remove them all together. Let's start at 10. I think 10 is a good enough. It's low enough that we'll have enough ideas, but at the same time, it's not 5. And then I mostly care about ranks in the top 10. Like I was saying before, anything below 5 or 10 is probably not going to give you any real share of impressions. It might, and so I'm not saying don't look at it, and there are kind of edge cases where you would like to. This is not one of them. So we're going to leave those for the very advanced webinar for later. So what I did here was I looked at the same list as before. These are all the keywords that we've seen any of these apps up top rank in, and this is updated every hour, this data. So if an app has ranked in this 20 days ago or a month ago, it may no longer be relevant and we don't show it. This is a fresh list. And then we filter them to look at the rank, and we're only targeting high ranks, top 10. And then we also filtered it for popularity. So keywords that no one is looking for are not going to be on this list. And we ended up with 174 keywords, in which Headspace is ranking in 162 of, which is pretty cool. And you can see that as we go down, we have less and less keywords, fewer keywords all around. So let's look at how well we're doing. We have a whole bunch of #1 keywords that are, I would say, fairly popular. A 14, not that much, but still good. Mindfulness, guided meditation, Headspace. Mindfulness meditation, a misspelling of meditation, and then also competitor names. Now, competitor names I have a love-hate relationship with optimizing for competitor names. If you read the teardowns, you know that I always advise against them. There are a tiny handful of of cases where you actually would want to try and target a competitor name. This might be one of them. It's on the verge. Again, this is a very advanced technique. I would not say use it unless you know exactly what you're doing. But even everything else that we see on this list is actually pretty good. Now, let's look for, so we have a benchmark, we have an idea of how well we're performing, and I can continue and look at every page on this list. But I notice we're starting to dig into 2 and 3, and so instead what I want to do is I want to find opportunities. I want to find keywords where maybe Calm is ranking very well in, and I'm close. So relaxation app, I'm actually very close here. If I'm Headspace at #4, popularity 32, competitiveness is not that high in comparison to everything else we see on this list. This could potentially be a keyword I want to focus on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Inspector. My mouse is not loving me today. And I'm going to later on start to look at additional keywords that I can use. So we are back in Keyword Inspector. We see Headspace is #4. We see Aura is in #3, and Relax Melodies is in #2. All of these apps have less downloads than Headspace. Less ratings, less rank. Can you say less rank? I'm not entirely sure. But they're ranked lower in their category, which means that If I am Headspace and I wanted to target this keyword, specifically relaxation, less so app because that's a stop word, if I put it in my subtitle, if I replace relaxing with relaxation, I will most likely rank number 2 in this, just because of the performance and just because of what I see happening in this keyword. So we already found a potential opportunity. Now, there are additional considerations because relaxation may not work well with sounds or stress or meditation or sleep. Relaxing sleep is a good keyword. Relaxation sleep isn't. So it's hard to tell if that's something that you should just jump into. But that's why I do that last. So now I have in my head that relaxation is probably a useful keyword that I can think about and consider for later. So we already found one potential opportunity. As we go down this list, we're going to find more. Relaxation again. So relaxation, popularity of 22 is less than relaxation app, popularity of 32. But it means that there are more combinations. Just out of curiosity, let's see if there are any keywords with relaxation. No, not really. So this was a good idea to begin with, but we look at the data and the data doesn't really support it. So we did not find a good opportunity. We just found something. And as we continue to go down this list, that's the idea. We find things that look like good ideas, and then we explore them a little bit more. And the more we explore them, the more we can tell if they're good or not. I see another interesting one on this, calming sounds. If we can, let's do the same thing. If we look at the idea of the word calming, because we already have sound in the subtitle, and if you remember from my teardowns and the guides, the algorithm pluralizes words for you, so sound really is also sounds. And Headspace is number 14 on this. Oh, and there's sounds right here. If we inject the word calming in here, so maybe replace relaxing with calming, again, we can probably springboard ahead directly into somewhere in this area, probably number 2 again. So we're going from 14, which is totally invisible to most human beings, into number 2, which is very, very visible on a keyword with a popularity of 36. That's an opportunity. Now let's try the same thing again, and let's see if calming appears in other places. Not too much, but I mean, for popularity 36, that's, I think, a good move. Let's see where relaxing takes us. Relaxing sounds, okay, a 38. May not want to break this. Relaxing music and relaxing altogether. So there is an opportunity here, and we have a secret weapon on the App Store, and that is using the keyword list. Because with the keyword list, I can use relaxing and relaxation. And even though it's not as strong as putting it into the subtitle, it's still going to be strong and helpful. Now, it's possible that Headspace is doing this, given it's a 14, and given everything I see on this list, relaxing 19, relaxing music 14, may not be the case. So if you're from Headspace and you're not using relaxing in your keyword list, please do so. I think that's going to be useful for you. So that's a very high level idea of how I would do this for Headspace. Now, this can go on for enough time until you exhaust all the different obvious opportunities, and then you can switch out the competitors for slightly less performant competitors and see if they're doing anything interesting, because even if an app does not have a ton of downloads, it may have someone clever behind it, and we want those clever ideas so we can analyze it, do the same process, rinse, repeat, basically, until we have a list of keywords. So here we already found 2 potential opportunities. One didn't really pan out. One could be interesting and needs further investigation. And we did that in just a few minutes. So you can do the exact same thing with your app right now. Now, next what I want to do is I want to look at Simply Piano and do the exact same thing. I love playing music. I play guitar. I'm trying to learn piano. I've been saying that every day for the last 2 years. I'm pretty terrible. And I've actually tried Simply Piano as well, but I'm a self-learner, as you can probably tell. But it's actually a big field. Learning piano, learning guitar, learning any instrument on the App Store. I did a few teardowns in the past on apps related to music, and it's actually a really interesting thing because the App Store is full of intents. People come to the App Store and they want to do something. They want to accomplish something. So they're not just looking to learn piano, they're looking to play piano. And so you have all these different ways of looking at keywords and trying to find keywords that people are looking for that may not be as obvious as, say, search engine optimization for Google or anything like that. So let's close this, and again, go back into my favorite inspector, and I'm going to look for Learn Piano. And look at that, Simply Piano is #1 in this keyword. We have a few other ones. I don't know too much about the piano side of learning. I did most of my looking into guitar playing, but these, again, it doesn't really matter if these apps are even equivalent to Simply Piano, because if I'm looking to learn how to play piano and these apps apply and they show up, that's what users are going to see, and we want to know that. So same thing, I'm going to jump into Keyword Inspector and we're going to establish a benchmark for the US. And Simply Piano is actually the leader in this category, which is already pretty good. It's a good starting point. Let's extend this to a whole year just to get a better idea of what's going on. And we see a similar trend. I guess people staying home really wanted to learn how to play piano. They thought it was a great time to do that. I thought so too. Not necessarily successfully. But again, this is very similar to what we were looking at before from a data perspective. This stability that we see here, not that many changes up or down, means that systemic changes really, not just this little spike and this little dip, means that what we see in the App Store is what we need. If we see a specific level of downloads, that's what we're going to aim to beat. So from here, let's go into keywords. Now we can move a lot faster. And I'm going to skip the preview altogether and go directly into the report so we can start filtering. And let's see what we got. It's all loading. Again, this is happening in real time. The data here updates every hour, and so this is really, really fresh. Fresh and slow. Oh, there we go. So what did I do here? Oops. Oh boy, a lot of keywords. Okay, so let's get filtering because we have 26 pages of keywords and I don't really want to look at all of them. I want to look at only the ones that matter. So I'm going to look at a high rank and I'm going to look at a popularity of 10 or above just to get some ideas. Now, the 10 or above is just something I use because I don't know what I'm up against here. If you do this enough times and you know that 10 is maybe a little bit too low and gives you too much noise, you can increase that up to 20, 25. It really depends on the set of apps that you're looking at. If you're Spotify, you probably want to go beyond 25 even, or if you're an app of that size. So quickly, we can see that we're not really #1 in everything if I'm Simply Piano. But we're #1 in quite a few things and quite a few popular things. So play piano, learn piano, piano lessons, piano learning, the name of the app, of course, piano teacher. So all of these are pretty good, but let's see where we can improve a little bit. And we have a few twos here. Piano Academy, that's interesting. Actually, a popularity of 32 on Piano Academy is quite surprising. And doing this, which is exactly what we did before for Headspace, now we can see that learning piano is popularity 18, which is not as much as these other ones, but it's not bad. So if I am Simply Piano, I should put learning in my keyword list at least. Free piano lessons, also interesting. Harder to target free and depends on your relationship with Apple, might be problematic. So we're going to ignore that for now. But piano music is interesting. Now, it's popular enough, and I think that JoyTunes can easily make it into this keyword. The question is it going to convert? And so we have what could potentially be an opportunity here, but it may not be an opportunity if it's not as relevant. And piano music, to me, does not sound like it's something that I would learn from or be able to really get better at in any sort of way. So I'm just going to ignore that altogether. But we can continue, and we can do that for pretty much every app until we find all the spaces. Piano songs again, hello piano. Free piano lessons keeps on coming up. So let's do it and let's look backwards. Let's look at where the app is not doing all that well. Yeah, guitar, music songs. I can go through all of these. Music notes. So here's another interesting one. Notes are not on this. And when you play piano, you need to learn notes. maybe that's related. Now, I'm not entirely sure if the app actually teaches you how to read notes, so that again is another consideration. If you know your app, you should know your app, you know it best. But if it does have anything to do with notes, that's something you can potentially include, and that really opens up the door to a lot of new keywords that we can look at. So if we go back to Keyword Inspector quickly, and let's look for piano notes, popularity of 24, it's not even that competitive. And look who's ranking here. All these apps that have such few downloads that we can't even get an estimate for them. That means that it's less than these low numbers to begin with. And so this could be potentially a great opportunity. And even though none of the other competitors used it, given what we've seen, we can come up with how to do that. And something interesting, because we don't have a lot of information from those competitors, we can take piano notes and bring that into interrelated keywords, which uses machine learning to identify relationships between apps and between keywords and suggest similar keywords. And look at that, piano keyboard. So keyboard is also something, another word that you can use for piano. Two different elements, I know, or instruments rather. But when it comes to searches, if I have a keyboard, I may not be thinking how to play piano. I may be thinking how to play keyboard. And so let's see if there's more interesting stuff with keyboard, and there is. And most of it is actually useful. Keyboard lessons, not as much. Keyboard, learn keyboard, use a keyboard. There's some good stuff in here. And JoyTunes is in here. And so this is potentially an opportunity, and you can easily get there by including keyboard, which I would imagine / hope is in their keyword list. I'll bring that up maybe into the subtitle. And then how that works with pretty much every other word inside of this name is going to be easy. Now, the name here does not really have that many keywords. Simply Piano is the name of the app. Piano is the one keyword that is actually useful here. So this app relies mainly on its subtitle. I would not recommend doing this. I would actually recommend taking the time to put more keywords into it. I know some are keyword purists. I'm not going to get into what I feel about that or what I think about that, but there are situations in which if you wanted to get more competitive, you would have to put more keywords in the name. And so think about that as you do your research and also as you see what your competitors do, because there are certain keywords that you just can't rank well for unless you have them in the name. One such one that has really nothing to do with anything we looked at yet, but something that I've been doing for a different report is food delivery. And we're going to remove keyboard from the name because that is not relevant. And we're going to get out of related keywords. And in the food delivery space, all the top apps, all the top layers actually have that in the name. So if you wanted to be a keyword purist and not have it in the name, you would not rank well for this keyword. That's just how it works. It doesn't happen in every keyword, and it doesn't happen in every section and segment of the App Store. So this is not cut and dry across all apps, but it definitely gives you a boost. So this is, again, something similar to what we did with Headspace with Simply Piano. There are a lot more opportunities that we can dig through as we iterate through those keywords, look them up, find alternatives, and then look at the necessary trends. So that's two. I'm going to take a quick break so we can answer some questions, and then I'm going to look at the same apps but on Google Play because it might be very similar, but it may not. And let's take a look. We have a few open questions. So Rachel is asking, how does iOS and Google look at similar keywords? Example, meal plan, meal planner, meal planning. I did not answer this already. When it comes to Apple and Google, they are completely different. Google comes with this like crazy knowledge of search engines, having Google for so many years. And Apple is a little bit different in what it does. Normally, and I have a whole guide on how to pick your keywords in order to really give the algorithm the most or squeeze the most juice out of it. And so something like plan, planner, planning, if you read that guide, will be all separate keywords. Plan and plans will be similar enough that you wouldn't have to include both. But when it comes to something like relax and relaxing, again, you would have to include both. So that's how the algorithm would see it. Now, Brian is asking, with all the keywords on reports, which keywords do we prioritize for our own apps? And I mean, that's where the art comes in. So after you get a good idea of all the different keywords that competitors are using that are popular that you can fit into based on your performance, like we saw with Headspace and with JoyTunes, then you start analyzing them for, do you actually want to rank for them? Meaning, are they relevant enough? Will they give you the kind of conversion? If someone searches that keyword and your app comes up, will they actually click on it or tap on it because it's relevant? And if the answer to that is yes, then those are the keywords you choose, and those are the keywords you use for your own apps. That's the idea. You learn from competitors, you find good ideas, and then you go from there. Maria's asking, are there ways to improve the store rank? By store rank, I mean the rank in the category. Yes, those usually tend to come with downloads, and App Store optimization gives you more downloads. So more downloads, more better ranks in search results, and higher category ranks. You can also do that with paid advertising, paid user acquisition, but it's mostly derived from downloads. So anything that increases downloads will increase that store rank. And then Ramiz is saying, I would like to know the correlation between backlinking for Google Play and ASO performance. I can answer that question in one sentence. There is a correlation, and I can answer it with a very long answer of how to do that and what the impact is of SEO and how SEO actually impacts ASO. I actually wrote a guide about SEO and ASO and how they are similar and different, and how you can leverage one to get, or leverage SEO to get ASO, which I highly recommend reading. It's on our resources section. But there is a correlation, and which means that when people search Google or any other search engine for that matter for your app, and they arrive at your App Store page, that traffic is also counted. Now, if they come from a specific place that has keywords in the metadata of the tag that is on the page, that of course helps. I'm going to dive into specific, I can't dive into specific search engine optimization techniques because that's going to take forever. But Oz just mentioned, just put the link to that guide, which I highly recommend reading. And so if you want to learn more about SEO and ASO, that's the best guide for you. Cool. So we're done with questions for now. I want to do now the same thing that we did, but we're going to go back to Headspace, and we're going to do that for Google Play. So we looked at meditation, but instead of App Store, I click on Google Play. And this is where things become interesting. So remember how Headspace was #1 for meditation on the App Store? It's #8 on Google Play. Why would it be #1 if it's not doing the same things? And the reason it's not #1 is because everything on Google Play is different. There are different apps that may not exist on the App Store. There are different techniques for optimizing, and there are different patterns for downloads. So you can see that even though it's got more downloads, according to our estimates, than any of these apps, it's really #8, which means that it's probably not using keywords properly, and it hasn't told Google, hey, that's what you should be ranking me for. Now, Google's a little bit different. So you have the app name, you have the short description, which is slightly similar, actually mostly similar, to Apple's subtitle, but then you also have the long description. And the long description is really helpful on Google Play. It's not as strong as you would expect because you can put technically any keyword you want there and in any number of repetitions. So Google knows that, and they know that you can just list a whole bunch of keywords. There are thousands of characters that you can put in the long description. So they read it like they would a website, and they analyze it like they would a website for the most part. And so there are techniques for how to do that, and I believe we have a guide for that as well. But you can see the difference. So the difference here is really, really, really stark. So let's do the same thing now for Google Play, and this is where stuff is going to become interesting. Headspace is not going to be in our top list. So the app we're optimizing for, we're not learning from it, and that's okay because we're going after performance. We're going after the data, and we're going to use that data to make assumptions and decisions. So looking at Google Play, let's extend this a little bit. Oops. So we have this here, and we'll drag that down. And we can see a whole bunch of interesting stuff here. So the number of downloads is considerably lower than what we saw before. The ranks are considerably lower. And it means that the algorithm is thinking about this keyword completely different than how Apple is thinking about this keyword, which is kind of normal. given Google and Apple and how they do what they do. And that's something you should be ready for, that everything you do on Apple is not just going to be a copy and paste to Google. And if that's what you're doing right now, you're just copying and pasting, and your performance is really not all that great, that's probably why. They have to be done separately. And that's why we keep everything separate on our platform. Now, looking at trends, here we start to see something interesting. So green is Let's Meditate, was doing a little bit better, is doing less better now. So competing with Let's Meditate is going to be a little bit easier than, let's say, competing with Insight Timer, which we also saw on the App Store, if you remember, the name I didn't recognize. And we can see the trends for all the other apps. Now, some of these apps are not as popular, so we don't even have an estimate for them, which means that they're getting even fewer downloads than this, while Headspace was getting more. Again, opportunities. Think about it that way. So let's take a look at the keywords. And this is again collecting all the keywords. Now this is doing the same thing, but for Google Play. Quite a few keywords. So we definitely need some filters. Let's jump in and filter them directly. So again, I like to look at 1 to 10 for the rank, and I like to look at any popularity that is greater than 10 as well. And we can see it's not really that many. So now we have a much more focused list to look at. 44, much more manageable for this. And let's take a look. Now, again, Headspace is not here because Headspace is not doing all that well. And so any keyword that we see on this list is probably a good opportunity for Headspace if I'm Headspace. But we're going to go after the ones that, in this case, are used by the most apps. Or the opposite, used by the least number of apps, or have the biggest gaps. So meditation has a big gap. Only this app is really here, while meditation free is a little bit different. Mindful meditation, also interesting. So all these keywords now are potentials for us. Let's look for the one with the most not ranked that this #1 app is ranked in. So let's look at Headspace. Funny. Let's look at the one with, let's say, high popularity. Also, interesting spelling. 45. Let's look at meditate. This is an interesting one. And I'm going to, oops, that's not what I wanted, but okay. Let's look at it in a keyword inspector. So here things are a little bit different. Calm is #2, Headspace is #5, which is interesting, but again, look at these downloads. Serenity is not really even remotely close to this. Insight Timer, closer, but not by a lot. Let's Meditate is again not at all close to any of these, and it's ranking in the top position. So that means that the keyword is not being used all that well, which is a good opportunity if I'm Headspace. It's really a good opportunity for any app in this space who will take the time to optimize for, specifically for meditate, or for keywords that have to do with that. So let's look at similar keywords for meditate. I'm curious, and let's order this by popularity. So a few branded names, but not really that many. And this will give us ideas for what we can look at. And then let's look at breathe, which we saw before being misspelled. We saw that too here. Look at that popularity. If we can get that into our keyword list, if I'm Headspace and I don't have that, so many opportunities. I mean, look at these downloads. They're really, really, really low. And this popularity is really high. And so high popularity, no one is really doing a good job competing for this. They're trying, and obviously it's working with very few downloads to be #1, and that's what's going to lead them to get more downloads. But for someone who has the downloads, we found a great opportunity. If this is not something that Headspace wants to put in their name or short description, because we are on Google Play, I would highly suggest using it at least 3 to 5 times in the description and use variation. So breathe, breathing. I can't really think of anything else right now, but that's the idea. Use that in the long description, and as long as you repeat it just enough times, it will indicate to Google that it's something that you want to be ranked in, and it's something that the app is relevant for. And given the download trends, it's going to jump to really the top of this. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. It may take a little bit of time, but I don't think it would take that long. So we just found a great opportunity for Headspace on Google Play, and also the same for JoyTunes and Simply Piano. So we're gonna look for Learn Piano, and JoyTunes is actually here. Great, with Simply Piano, but number 5. Now again, less keywords, less downloads, fewer downloads, not as good ranks. I mean, look at these ratings. So everything here in number 5 is better, but it doesn't have it in the name. And you can see that it actually has an impact. So if Simply Piano by JoyTunes was to change this to something, something, something dash Learn Piano, and on Google Play you have more characters for the name, this could easily rise to number 1. Not even a question asked. It's only a matter of however many hours it takes for Google Play to figure this out. And it's not even going to be that many hours. So we found another good opportunity. Now, I've looked at a lot of apps that are both on Apple and Google Play, and the trends usually skew towards spending more time on the App Store and spending more iterations and spending more experiments on the App Store. I can't say if that's the case here, but I think that if you have an Android version and an iOS version, you can use competitor intelligence to figure out if other apps, what is the ratio of App Store to non-App Store, and see if you have any more to grow there. And if you do, spend more time specifically on Google Play. We don't make any difference between, we don't differentiate between them, and our tools target both specifically for that store. So Apple is data based on Apple, Google is data based on Google, and that's how you do that the right way. But you have to follow the same process again. And so we, just by looking at this, we already found an opportunity, but we're going to go through and continue with this process. And again, very similarly, so the numbers are definitely different than what we saw before, but the ideas and the concepts are pretty much the same. Oh boy, look at that. So again, similar. There is stability in the last, 90 days roughly, and that's kind of what we're interested in. But you can see like stuff happened here. It's been a busy year for these apps. Now, swinging that to ASO, and we're gonna skip the preview, go directly to the full report so we can filter it. And again, we have a fairly focused keyword list that we can use. And now what I would do is I would look for all the places. There we go. Oh, this is interesting. Look at that popularity for misspelling of piano. But again, piano music, look at Learn Piano. Learn Piano, not the bestest of keywords for Floki specifically. And we can do that for all these different apps, find these gaps where apps can do better, and then take them, inspect them with Keyword Inspector, and then use them for our own apps. Time for more questions. Mohammed is asking, you said add breathe in the description 45 times, and is it the same for related keywords too, like breathing should also be repeated 45 times? I would say total, repeat the keyword probably 3 to 7 times with all the variations. It's really hard to tell because Google doesn't just look at the number of repetitions, but they also look at the density, meaning how many words do you have all together in your description. If you have a very short description and you repeat one keyword 3 to 5 times, it may have too much repetition in there, and Google is going to think you're spamming, which is technically what's happening. So you don't want to do that. We also have a guide on how often to use those keywords in your description, which I highly recommend reading. There are different strategies for doing that. But again, think about it as a percentage of total words, but normally that nets out to 3 to 5 times. Mark is asking, should I use different keywords for the same app between the iOS and Mac App Store? I have not touched on the Mac App Store. I would say probably not, because it's a similar type of user that is using an iPhone and using a Mac. That's probably not true in a lot of cases. I don't have too much data on Mac OS because I don't do that as often, so I can't say with a high degree of certainty, but I would say for now probably use the same keywords. The main difference is that you have almost 2 million iOS apps and less than 30,000 Mac apps. And so the diversity is much smaller, and overall the competition is very different. And so I would say use the same ones. So this is pretty much it. We have looked at how we identify competitors when it comes to ASO, how to look at their trends and build a benchmark so you can see what you're up against, looking for that stability, and then how to use the keyword inspector and keyword performance tools, actually competitor keywords tools, to look at the kind of keywords that they're using and look for those gaps and find those opportunities just by looking at their data. And we had to do very little guessing here on our own. Everything was presented to us. All we had to do was really just collect the keywords. So that's really how it is. Now, Juan is saying, could you show us a search on Spanish? It's really as easy as changing the country. So you can change that to any other country that is on this list if my mouse wanted to work. And then you would do the same thing. Spanish would, and this is an interesting side note on Spanish because I do a little bit of localized keyword analysis, and that is sometimes in other countries you would find keywords that are in English that have a high popularity. I know some people don't believe that's true. It is true, and it's based on data, and I've looked at the data, and that's because a lot of apps are in English. And so a lot of app names are in English. And because a lot of app names use generic keywords, I mean, even look at Headspace, head and space. And it's not something that you would localize into Spanish or into any other language. And so keep in mind that some English keywords may be popular in other countries alongside their localized keywords. It's actually the same for the US. And in some of the teardowns that I've done in the past, I've highlighted keywords that are in Spanish that are really popular in the US, in the English localization in the US, which is very interesting. So again, different countries, different languages, it's really the same process. Just do it per country and just do it. And remember that as you're doing it per country, to look at all the performance data, particularly in that country. So downloads in that country, keywords in that country, keyword ranks, and even competitors. I would not necessarily just use the competitors from the US in Spain because it could be different depending on the app, depending on the category you're in. And I know we're running out of time, so I will end this now. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you learned something new. We're going to do this again in just about a month, hopefully just before Christmas. So if you submitted your app and you didn't see it here, please submit it again when we send that link, and I will try to get to it. I promise. That's it for me. And actually, I did promise a promo code in the beginning, I think at least. If you are still on the recording and you haven't left yet, there will be a promo code that I will show in just a second, which you can use to upgrade to our ASO tools. And for the plan that has all these different ASO tools, we're given 25% off for anyone who watched this webinar. So I'm going to put that on. And with that in mind, I will say happy Wednesday, and I hope you enjoy this.